Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us today. We have a presentation by ETU Gold. So with me, I have Ellie Owens, Vice President, and Eric Owens, CEO. Before we get started, I will remind everyone that this presentation will contain forward-looking statements, and there will be a Q&A section at the end, so feel free to input your questions in the Q&A box at the bottom. With that out of the way, I'd like to introduce Eric and Ellie, who are partway through a drill program on their Hawkins Gold Project in North Central Ontario. Hi, nice to have you back.
Yes, hi. Thanks, Deborah. How are you today?
I'm good. Exciting results recently, and sounds like there's a lot more to come. So looking forward to an update as well as an overview for the new investors joining us on the call.
Yeah, but great. Thank you. Yeah, thank you again for setting this up, and we'll try to not bore the old the existing people, and while informing the new people. Well, I want to thank everybody for listening in here and listening to our story. I will run a little bit through how we came about to be where we are here today. I've known about the project, the Hawkins Project, our principal project, for a number of years. And along about late 2019, it became available to me to do exactly what we're doing here now. That is setting up a new junior gold exploration company with the goal of discovering a large gold deposit. And that company is ETU Gold. Here we are with Ellie and myself here as co-founders. We've accomplished a lot in the last, now it's April, so the last 14 or 15 months. We were just formed as a new company in February of last year. We got off the ground raising in 3 or 4 tranches of financings, just shy of $1 million throughout the year, which got our first geological and prospecting teams out on the project. And then in the fall, we managed to complete an IPO in just 3 short months based upon some of that work we had accomplished there. That work also, so at December 30th, we completed the IPO, an oversold and overbought IPO. And in January 4th, or on January 4th of this year, we began trading on the TSX Venture Exchange. A month later, we had a drill rig on the ground in early February. In early March, we had our first results from that drill program. And subsequent to that, we have now completed that first wintertime program. So we've come a long way in a very efficient and driven fashion because of who we are, and we'll get into a bit of that, and because of the nature of the project and the interest that we're seeing in it. A little bit about why we like this project. So here's a regional map in central Ontario showing the Timmins camp over on the east here and Hemlo over here on the west. Our project is here. Well, one of the characteristics of our project is the size of the project. It's 60 kilometers long from east to west, consisting of a narrow portion, which is the optioned portion of the property that we optioned from a private company, and a big bulbous mass of claims that we staked ourselves. So large property package. It has a starter resource of about 328,000 ounces of gold. That's hosted in 6.2 million tons for an average grade of 1.65 grams per ton. We call that the Mckinnon Zone, or the Mckinnon Inferred Resource. That's located right in the center of the property. So that's a good starting point. The best thing about this resource is it gives us some meat to focus our exploration attention. This resource is based upon 40-year-old or 35-year-old Falcon Bridge drilling. Falcon Bridge drilled about 80 holes in the 1980s, all shallow. This resource is calculated down to about 150 meters at the most and 3.5 kilometers long along strike. It's all shallow, but the best thing is that there's been very little work done not only on this resource, but on a broader property package since that time. There's been a few scattered junior companies with scattered drill holes here and there, but nothing meaty. And that's where the value added activity is to our activities now, to ETU Gold and its shareholders. The fact that we can use modern thoughts or modern geologic thought as well as modern technologies to add value. So this is a good thing. And the final point to make here is, besides the infrastructure in the region, is that it's a Hemlo lookalike. So Hemlo, as you know, is a 24 million ounce of gold mine to the west of our property here.
So this page is pretty self-explanatory. I'll just give you a few of the highlights. Insiders hold 23%. That's mostly the Owens family and then management and the board. What we're proud of is the early fund investment in E2 Gold. We had Palisades Capital come in with the lead order in our IPO. We have RAB Capital, AIS Gold Corp out of Connecticut, and Northern Precious Metals out of Montreal. So funds hold about 13% of our shareholding, which is quite a lot for just a year-old junior gold exploration company. So we're very proud of that. Now I'm going to give you a little bit of a overview of the management and leadership at E2 Gold. As Eric said, we've done a lot in a year, and I really attribute that to our leadership here. We've got some very experienced members, and then we've got some young, energized members, and it's really combined to make a solid team. Eric, who has founded and ran Alexandria Minerals for 15 years, I'll have him tell you a bit about himself there.
Yeah, the best thing is that, I've been involved in about 7 million ounces of gold discovery, either through defining, through drilling, part of the teams involved in that, or helping to raise money for my teams doing that at Alexandria Minerals. So I've done everything that we've done to date, I've done before. And the experience has come through and made us very efficient. And I couldn't have done it without Ellie being here at the beginning. She's young, driven, meticulous. And then we've added during the whole process, Natalie, our VP exploration as well. Also younger than me for sure, and very meticulous and a great geologist.
So I started out as a geologist, worked for a number of years at some exploration and mining sites. I went back to law school and became a lawyer, came out of law school studying or practicing securities litigation in Toronto. And now I've melded those two backgrounds into the position I hold at E2 Gold. And we also are joined by Eric Martin, our CFO, who is a CFO for a number of other junior companies. So a really experienced team here. One of the things that really gets us excited about the Hawkins Gold Project is the fact that it's located in an area that's that's emerging. So it's flanked by these two gold camps, the Timmins and the Kirkland Lake gold camps, and then Hemlo gold camp. But that central area with all the yellow dots really hasn't been looked at until the past 10 years. So we're looking at Hawkins with its resource was really drilled in the past 35 years. And we're able to take these new geologic models that we're seeing from these other mines like Sugar Zone Mine, Mckinnon Gold Project, Island Gold Mine, and apply them to the Hawkins Gold Project. So
a recently developing area, which has seen some more than 20 million ounces of new gold being discovered in the region, and on the verge, most of it on the verge of, if it isn't already in production, on the verge of being in production. Just to give you the lay of the land, moving into what we're doing now and what we've recently completed on this project. We have the outline of our property shown in red here, 60 kilometers long. Most of our work, 99% of our work, is going to be this central 15-kilometer stretch here, which itself is a pretty sizable project. And as you can see, the Mckinnon resource shown in red here, in and around, we'll be focusing in and around this for the foreseeable future. The areas off to the west and to the east are going to be subject to earlier stage activities as we try and targets. Mostly they're virgin ground, and so we're busy trying to target new drill targets there using geophysics, geologic mapping. Most of the foreseeable future drilling activities will be in and around the Mckinnon inferred resource. And a little bit closer view of that, just to show you why we're focusing where we are here. In yellow triangles here, we have high-grade prospects with reported high grades for instance, at Johnston Barnes, way over here on the southwest, reported 7 or 8 gram material over 10 meters, dating from the 1930s. Goldfield showing up to 30 or 40 gram material in 1 meter channel samples. Both we have taken channel samples of that nature and of that grades, as well as historical channel samples. Way over in the far east, the Colbert Dubroy, there's been a few grab samples taken from that prospect. So these are all old prospects, and up to 20 to 30 gram material coming out of that prospect as well. In addition, we show the Mckinnon Zone itself, this red stretch of red here, 3.5 kilometers long. That's the main target zone that our recent drilling has been. We show the location of our recently announced drill holes, MK21-3 and 5, which we also show in the cross section over to the right here. Good results, 6 meters in hole number 5, for instance, 6 meters grading 5.78 grams per ton, grading, including 30.9 grams per ton over half a meter and a separate interval of 9.71 grams per ton over also a half a meter adjacent to that. So we're getting good results. And these are the first 3 holes that we've announced in this region. We drilled these holes specifically because we don't really know exactly where the Mckinnon Zone lies. From the Falcon Bridge drilling, we have a pretty good estimate, but there's still a little bit of error in there. And our goal in this first round of drilling, the 17 holes that we've completed so far, has been to better identify that, because as with these drill holes, we want to identify and follow up on these high grades that Falcon Bridge drilled 40 years ago or 35 years ago. And we want to be able to come and chase those zones down. So we need to know exactly where those things are before we start sinking deeper and deeper holes in this thing.
Now, what's also made us excited about these new drill results is this wide zone in hole number 3 there. It's 25 meters wide, 1.2 grams per ton. And so we've not only seen high grades coming out of these new results, we've also seen very wide mineralized zones, which is very important for the style of mineralization that we're looking at.
Yeah, it's all part of this whole aspect of similarity to Hemlo that we're sort of relying on a model for us. And these are characteristics that were shown at Hemlo as well.
And on that note of Hemlo, to give people an understanding of why we compare it to Hemlo is, first of all, the mineralization in the geology, but to give you an idea of where the size potential is in that project, if you could go up one slide there, Eric. The resource is 3 kilometers long there in red. Hemlo is about a little over 4 kilometers long and 1.5 kilometers deep. This cross section that we show here of drilling is only 60 kilometers down from surface. So you can see there's a large, there's a big capacity for growth there if we're looking at a Hemlo style deposit. And that's why these wide, lower grade, but wide mineralized zones are very important when thinking about this style of deposit.
Yeah. So this is more sort of argument for the Hemlo story. I won't go into any much detail here, except the fact that we have this broad lower grade 1 gramish halo around high grade material, which is a classic Hemlo story, as well as the style of rocks that we see in the area. Let's bring you up to date as to where we've been drilling. So again, this is a more detailed look at the Mckinnon Zone here, shown in pale orange tan color. Here in gray are Falcon Bridge drill holes, or at least our perceived location of Falcon Bridge drill holes. This and the next couple of diagrams are really about why we're doing what we're doing and where we're going to go with this in the future. So in the current round of drilling, as I mentioned, we've drilled 17 holes. We started here in holes 1 through 5 in the center of the old Falcon Bridge drilling, in the vicinity of higher grade Falcon Bridge holes, to get a better handle on where we can take this as we try to chase that down in the future. We completed 1 hole in the Taylor area towards the east end. We would have completed more, but spring thaw kicked us out, and we had to kind of get the drill rigs out of that area, or the drill rig out of that area, for fear that we might get it stuck. And we came to higher ground over on the west side of the project area or the deposit area, and completed 11 more holes. Assays are pending at this point for the next for 14 of the 17 holes that we've drilled, and we expect to start seeing those come out in the coming weeks, beginning with next week, and then on an every other week sort of fashion going forward in the spring.
One thing that's really interesting about this diagram here too is pointing at the Shenango Shaft 1 is a high-grade prospect. It actually back in the 30s produced a small amount of gold, but it was in production, 66 ounces. It's not actually included in the resource. As you can see, it lies south of the resource there. So we've done a lot of drilling in that area in this past drill campaign. So that should be really interesting for us to see those results coming out in the next couple of weeks to a month and a half.
Yeah, and it sort of drives the point home about our targeting method, what kind of targets we have on the project, beginning with the focus in and around the Mckinnon resource itself. There's fill-in drilling, of course, to do there. There's along strike drilling to try and add to this, as well as down plunge drilling on those targets. But as Ellie likes to say, Ellie, I'll let you talk about the other targets along that we have yet to test.
Yeah, I love this slide because it just so clearly shows to me the extent that this can follow along strike. You can see the Mckinnon resource in red there, sitting right along that contact between the magnetic low, and which is in blue, and the green medium magnetic signal. And you can see that contact traces eastward to our high-grade Culvert du Bois showing, and then traces all the way westward along the property, hitting many of those other high-grade prospects in red there. So it gives us a very easy targeting method for step-out drilling along strike. And so allows us to think that there's good reason to believe resource growth is will be pretty solid in the future.
So that wraps up the story. I mean, as we've come so far, what our plans are going forward. But of course, we're waiting for results, assay results from the bulk of the drilling that we completed this winter. Everybody's busy, and it takes a little bit of time to get these things processed through the system. We anticipate an amping up. We've stopped drilling. We have spring thaw to continue through here, and then followed by a short fire season before leaves come out and things dry up. Once leaves come out, then things are good again, and so we intend to bring the drill rig back in late June, early July, to get started on the next round of drilling, which will include not only drill targets we had planned to drill but didn't complete this past winter or this recent winter, but also on follow-up holes on some of the follow-up drilling on some of the holes that we're getting assay results from now. In addition, we're going to be adding other activities, which will include geological mapping and sampling, prospecting. We have a prospectors arriving next week, or in the next couple of weeks, I should say. Won't be next week. In fact, it'll be about 2 or 3 weeks away to start the program. The geologists will be out a little bit more closer to June to get their program going, all with the efforts of trying to produce more drill targets for future drilling. In addition to that, we anticipate ramping up on geophysics using various geophysical tools, including airborne magnetics and IP, to help us with that those targeting methods. And we really want to get this to the point where we can bring 2 drill rigs into place in the coming months. We're not sure we'll be able to justify 2 drill rigs yet in the summer, but we certainly anticipate that for the winter. And it's all in the name of trying to see if we can build this deposit to something bigger, much bigger than the current 328,000 ounces. So that's what we have to say. And if we're happy to entertain any questions.
Thanks for that overview. I have a couple questions. So first, starting with drill result turnaround times. I know the labs have been an issue and they've been slow to come. Can you speak to that a little bit? How long ago did you drill the holes that were released last week, and what are the turnaround times that you're facing right now?
Yeah, so the ones we released last week were probably drilled, probably late February, I would imagine. So 6 weeks by the time we released them. Now, we would have gotten results probably a week or so prior. We had to compile them, interpret them, and get everything prepared for that. And that takes some time. But yeah, so you're probably looking from the time that we drill to the time that we actually release them, you're probably looking at 6 weeks. So we anticipate a fairly steady stream for those the remaining 14 holes over beginning next week and every week or so, every week or two beyond that in the coming through the end of May probably.
So all the holes that you drilled in this program, you identified as targets before starting the program. There's no iterative process in the drilling, is that correct?
Correct. These were previously identified targets. Most of them were on the Mckinnon resource. Two or three of them, I think, were to the south of the Mckinnon resource, based around the Shenango shafts. There's a couple of shafts to the south of the resource, so they've never been tested by a drill rig, so we're looking at those as well.
And for those that are new to the story, can you remind us how you ended up with this property and why it was abandoned after Falcon Ridge drilling?
Yes. So I came about it. It's been held in private hands for quite a long time. I think that the nature of mineralization hasn't been looked upon as very favorable, just because of its grade at 1.5 grams, or in that vicinity. I think people in recent years have been focusing on higher grade resources, and that's what the development trend has been. Falcon, if we back up and look at the history, Falcon Ridge drilled in the 1980s, and what they discovered was a long linear zone with about 1.5 gram material on average, even though there's high grade pockets in that zone, high grade zones, and it's all shallow, and that's also positive. But in the late 1980s and early 1990s, most Canadian companies looking for, first of all, Falcon Ridge was not a gold company. Their principal reason, we think, for doing this was that their competitor, their competitor company was Noranda, active at Hemlo. And I think they were just sort of saying, oh, in a spirit of competition, we got to find something like Hemlo. In the late 80s, early 90s, most Canadian gold mining companies, juniors and even seniors to some degree, they all went abroad looking for low-grade deposits, saprolite deposits in low-latitude countries. So these kinds of deposits were not terribly in Canada, in the Archean Shield of Canada, were not terribly viable. That didn't happen really until the early 2000s, as first Osisko proved its low-grade deposit in the Val-d'Or area in Malartic. That's when looking at low-grade deposits became fashionable again. And so by then, people had moved on to other areas, and this region only began to get new looks at it. And Hart Gold discovered in the early to mid 2000s, late 2000s, the Sugar Zone. Alamos Gold rejuvenated, well, it wasn't Alamos, predecessors to Alamos. Alamos is the only recent company to have it. Island Gold became rejuvenated. Magino started having another look at, and there's a low-grade deposit. Borden was a new discovery in 2006 or 2008. So it's only brand new discovery. And likewise, Cote Lake is a new recent. So people just it's been out of the way for a long time.
Just geologic fashion trends, basically. I mean, over in Val-d'Or, Quebec, also, those comparable deposits are at a lower grade of metamorphism. They're at greenschist species. And then we've got the Kappas casing structure over here, creating these higher grade metamorphic deposits that people are now moving over and kind of looking at these higher grade deposits where they weren't really looking at higher metamorphic grade deposits, I should say, that they weren't really looking at before because they were looking at the lower Greenschist facies over in Val d'Or.
All right. That might have been too geologically complex for me, but hopefully somebody in the audience.
It's geologic trends.
Even Ellie goes down that path occasionally.
It's kind of like a fashion trend. People sort of follow these ideas and follow the latest sort of geologic fashion trend in deposits. And now it's Hawkins time. It's Hawkins geologic fashion trend time.
There you go.
All right, that I can understand. So just to remind the audience, if you do have questions, feel free to put them in the Q&A box. Otherwise, I'm going to continue to ask dumb questions. So I would encourage you to put your own in. So talking about the region, the results that you had, I mean, I'm not a geologist, I'm not even a mining specialist, but it seems they were pretty high grade for your area. Can you speak to some of the other projects in the area outside of Hemlo and what kind of grades you find?
Yeah, so the Sugar Zone mine, which is the closest mine, has grades in the neighborhood of 8 grams per ton as an average grade for some of its high grade zones in its ore body. And Alamos Gold, similar sorts of grades. Hemlo itself was noted. I mean, its average grade varies depending on where you are, between 6 and 8 grams per ton, but at the 6 gram per ton level, it's a bit wider zones, and that's what it was. It was actually quite notable because it was like hole number 80 that finally discovered the really sweet spots. They were kind of testing around from here to there for a number of years, and it was hole number 80 before they finally hit on its sweet spot. So that's kind of the grades we're looking at. Obviously, from an open pit point of view, 1.5 grams is fine, and there will be more of that to be found, I hope. We certainly have no drill testing along strike with the Mckinnon Zone to find more shallow mineralization. But if we're gonna build this to a deposit that is going to be amenable to selling to a big company for a lot of money, we're going to have to also find the higher grade zones and try and chase those down at depth. And as Ellie noted, we're only scratching the surface so far here. What we know about this deposit is in the upper 150 meters, whereas any of these Archean deposits, gold mines in northern Canada and Ontario and Quebec, and especially Hemlo, these things can go down to 1 kilometer, 2 kilometers, 1.5 kilometers. So there's a lot of room for testing as we go forward once we get a better handle on the location of this zone.
Okay, that makes sense to me. And would you go back the side of where you with, I believe your drill program so far was 17 holes, is that correct?
That's correct. Could you repeat that question? Sorry.
I was just asking Ellie to load back up the slide that shows where you've been drilling. And let's talk about the results that are still coming in the pipeline. And I guess the question is, what were you hoping to achieve with this drill program? And what would make it a success in your view, Eric?
So we were hoping to, drill 4,000 meters, and really the whole, just the first aspect of your question is to get a good handle. This is our first ETU Gold's first serious look. While we have some old Falcon Bridge drill core to look at, this is our first serious geological look at this thing. So it's about understanding this to better plan for the next round of drilling. How do we find more gold at grades that we want? And so far, we've done a good job at addressing that issue. There's still more information to come out as we wait for assays, of course. And we didn't drill a full 4,000 meters that we had planned. It was a bit of a slow startup and then an early spring thaw. So we weren't able to drill all the 4,000 meters. We probably got about three quarters of that done. A success would be finding more of the same, what we just recently announced in all the remaining holes. That's not likely to happen, but the success is being able to identify these zones, locate this target zone, that is the Mckinnon Zone, as best possible so that we can go back in and start expanding on the results that we've just that we're in the process of waiting for. And that'll be really the success of this first drill program.
Okay. And I know it's still fairly early on in your exploration development, but how are community relations in the area? And are you doing anything on the ESG or CSR front?
Yes, yes, we are. We have pretty good relations with everybody we're dealing with right now. We actually have 3 First Nations groups that we're in talks with and moving ahead with on discussions related to memoranda of understanding. And I think we're on reasonably good terms with those groups. So we're making progress, I should say. In terms of the local non-native community, we are renting facilities from individuals as well as companies in the nearest place where we can house our field workers. So I think by and large, people are fairly excited to see us present in this area.
Okay. And how has COVID affected operations lately, if at all?
Well, the main ways has been hasn't really slowed down our activities. We've had to adjust in minor ways with small cost increases. For instance, our field workers are housed in dormitory style facilities. Those facilities, those buildings have 2 beds per bedroom. We've decided due to COVID to house only 1 person per bedroom. So that means we have to rent a few more bedrooms than we would otherwise have to do that. We'll probably change our scheduling a little bit so that there's not so many. So in normal circumstances, we're working 2 or 3 weeks in and then a week off. We may change that scheduling so there's not so many rotations, in and out rotations going forward. So we may end up making it a 4-week rotation and then 2 weeks off, that sort of situation. Workers are required to get COVID tests before they come out to site. Fortunately, this is a rural, remote location, and it's not too much worry about people congregating in mass numbers, so to speak, which is where the big issues arise.
Okay. And with the drill program that you mostly completed, I think you have 1,000 meters left that you're going to complete after spring thawing. I'm assuming you're working towards some sort of resource update. What's the timing on that? And are you hoping to expand the resource a lot? Obviously, you're doing a lot of exploration drilling, doing any infill drilling. Can you to your plans for expanding the resource or high grade?
Yeah. So we actually have this phase 1 drilling was 4,000 meters. We actually have a total of 5,000 meters more on our drilling contract, and our planned drilling was to complete that by the end of the summer/fall season. So we have 5,000 more meters to planned that we're going to complete during the summer and fall season. This drilling probably won't lead us to a new resource estimate. I think we'll probably wait as we get more information to look at a new resource update in 2022 rather than this year. We're really getting to know this, and we're lucky to be able to have this resource as a guiding light for our drill planning. But there wouldn't be, if we don't step out more and step down more. If we start doing that in the summer, and when we start doing that, then we'll have a better idea as to how soon we are going to want to do a follow-up resource estimate. This first phase was simply getting to know the deposit and making sure that we could identify where this was located so that we can expand either sideways or depth on this thing in this next round of drilling.
Well, I think that'll be super exciting for the market when you start stepping out from previous drilling and seeing what you can truly add in exploration. Well, it seems really interesting. Is there anything I haven't asked you, Eric, that you'd like to speak about today?
No, you've done a pretty detailed job of covering the important features, I think.
We do have one question from the Q&A audience, concern about wondering if there should be concern about low volume of shares traded, or if this is typical at this stage of a junior miner.
Well, Ellie, I was going to ignore that one, put you on the spot since you brought it up.
It's okay. Fair enough. It's a fair question.
I don't see that question. Where do you see that?
Oh, I just made it disappear. I should have made it disappear before Ellie asked it, but it is a valid question. And I guess to reframe it in a broader sense, like, what are you doing in terms of your capital market strategy? You're a client of ours on the social media side. We help you a bit with your IR strategy, but I think, I mean, I can speak to this, that you've definitely started to ramp up on the media IR front. Maybe you could talk to expanding that and fixing your liquidity issue, if you will.
Yeah. Ellie, you want to start?
Yeah,
I can add in as needed.
Sure. Well, first of all, I think this is pretty normal for an early stage company. We don't have that many shares outstanding, and they're also held by people. They're very tightly held. It's by people who are in this for the long run, because there's long-term growth to be had. So there's that. But on the volume front, we certainly are reaching out to we're doing more webinars like this. We're attending more conferences. We really wanted to wait until we saw the drill results coming back. As Eric pointed out in the presentation, we started out as a company last year, started drilling in February, went public in December. And so we wanted to wait to see the drill results coming back before we went out and hit the ground running. But now that we've got these drill results back, we are attending a lot more conferences and doing more marketing in terms of distribution of our press releases, ads on Kitco, stuff like that.
Yeah, I might add as well. We've had a lot of discussion, as you know, Deborah, about all of this and how to proceed on all of this. And we've tested out a few things here and there just to see how they would work. Some didn't work out very well. Others have worked out. We're now settling in, I think, on a routine here, but we're still have a lot of activities this month that we hadn't previously had. So it is good to keep this going. And to the comment by Ellie that we really thought that before we started having drill results starting to come out, spending a lot of time on marketing was probably a little bit kind of the horse before the car, the cart before the horse, and sort of thing. So now that we're this assay data is starting to come out on a more routine basis, and other things. We have other activities going on as well in the field that should help as well. It makes sense now to start ramping up those activities.
Well, you went public at a very difficult time, right? You went public right at the end of the year over the Christmas holidays, and then January, as everyone knows, was a tough time for the gold market. So I think you've done well to keep your dollars tight, use them for drilling. And now that you've got good results, start going out and telling the story to the market. And, it's a good time for investors to start looking at the stock, because you do have, I think you said you've reported 3 of 17 drill holes so far. So,
Yep.
You've had good results. If investors invest now, they're getting in, I think, just below your IPO or RTO price. So pretty good value, and hopefully a lot more momentum coming into the stock. And I do see another question coming in. Oh yeah, about the labs. Do you use only one lab? If more, can you speak to the possible sample process variability?
Yes, at this point, we're using just one lab. We have used other labs in the past, but we're using Bureau Veritas out of Vancouver. and they have a prep facility in Timmins, so that we ship our samples to Timmins, where they get prepped, and the pulps get sent off to the splits get sent off to Vancouver for analysis. And they've been pretty good. Our first results came in sort of a month, and they've sort of guaranteed us a month turnaround time. They've actually been pretty close to that month-long turnaround time. It takes us a week to get the samples out, the drill core logged, and then sampled, and then out to the final lab spot, and then a week at the other end for us to review the data and prepare the press release and all the associated figures. So it's 6 weeks seems to be a fairly middle of the road sort of time frame.
Well, that's actually an excellent turnaround time, because I've heard of companies waiting 2 to 3 months still for lab results, which makes it extremely challenging to conduct a drill program.
Well, I mean, did I say Bureau Veritas? No, we're not using Bureau Veritas.
We'll edit that out for an extra fee, Eric. So I think there's no other questions from the audience, and I think you've covered it very well. Maybe just in summary, you could tell us what E2 Gold is, and your next 3 months of catalysts and timing on that.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Deborah. So of course, we're a junior exploration company, and our goal is to take a small deposit and turn it into a really big deposit. That's our goal. That'll be a couple of years for us to see that it has that footprint, and then we can put up 10 drill rigs on this thing to once we decide it has that footprint, to then better define it. And that'll take a few years beyond that. And then we can sell it, and I'll get rich and go home. But in the nearer term, we have 17 or 14 drill holes that we're waiting for assays, and that'll be over the next month and a half, that are coming out, streaming out over the next month and a half. We've just recently completed an IP survey on the project, so we'll be able to release that once we get the final results in on that as well. We are starting up prospecting activities in the middle of May, and that'll start generating some information, I presume, as they find good high-grade material to sample. And then we'll be starting our geological activities later in June, or later in May or early June, and then drilling activities, our next round of drilling activities in late June, early July. So we've got a lot of things that we're planning and helping to plan in anticipation of ramping up on those summertime activities.
Well, it sounds like a busy time. Ellie, do you have anything to add?
Nope. I think we covered a lot.
What I think is really, really interesting is what you have done with your social media accounts, which we help. Also, Ellie's guerrilla style videos from site. I think that they've been really informative and useful. And so any investors that want to keep updated on the project and on drilling, please feel free to follow E2 Gold. I think, it's the pandemic's changed the way that so many people do things and interact and explain what they're doing to the investor community. And I really think that your videos are some of the best in helping people understand what you're doing on the property.
Thanks, Deborah. I appreciate that.
Yep.
And we really are trying to do as much videoing as we can, because it's easier for people to understand what we're doing. I mean, mining is such a weird industry because it's a very intangible asset. You're not able to go and see the product. It's underground. And it's so far away. And so it's good to be able to bring back something a little more tangible for investors to see the activity actually going on site. So that's sort of our goal, with a bit more transparency and a bit more education a little bit.
Well, I think that here, hole 4C, hole 1 was one of my favorites.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah. Kicking the casing and
Yeah.
Anyway, well, thank you so much for taking the time to update us. Really looking forward to seeing a steady flow of results out of E2. And if anyone has any further questions or would like a meeting, feel free to reach out. I'd be happy to set that up for you.
Yep.
Appreciate your time and everyone that participated as well.
Thanks,
Yep.
Deborah.
Thank you, Deborah, and thank you, everybody.